We sing to and of a transcendent God. He created and sustains and is redeeming all that is. We can't really begin to fully understand who he is or what he does. He's all an enigma wrapped in an illusion. Well, you know what I mean. And yet we sing to this God, and about this God, and about what he does every Sunday in corporate worship. How are we supposed to do songs about things we can't even begin to understand? It's simple. Do what the biblical authors did. They used poetry. One of my favorite definitions of poetry is using language to say what cannot be said. Poetry is how we can explore and sing about the mysterious, the unfathomable, and the transcendent. One of the ways that poets say what cannot be said is with metaphor. Metaphors are great for dealing with complexity and mystery. In Isaiah 64, verse 6, God is the potter and we are the clay. God is compared to a hen in Psalm 91, verse 4, and in Isaiah 42, verse 14, to a woman in childbirth. Even Jesus uses metaphors to explain who he is. I am the bread of life. I am the good shepherd. I am the vine and you are the branches. I am the light of the world. Most of life is mysterious and complex, and a lot of things cannot be expressed or understood directly or simply. In order to express what is inexpressible and to explore what is unknowable, we compare them with something else, something we know. But metaphors do a lot more than just help us explain things. When that's all they do, we call them analogies. In the hands of a skilled poet, however, metaphor can take us way beyond understanding because they activate our imaginations. But before we get into some examples, we need to get some technical stuff out of the way first. This is very important, for if you don't make the comparisons correctly, then they will not be magical, they will be ludicrous. A metaphor has two parts, the thing that you are describing and the thing you are comparing it to. In the metaphor, the wind howled, the wind is compared to a wolf. Note that you can name or imply either part of the comparison. In this case, the wind is named and the wolf is implied by the word howled. Just a few other related terms that you probably remember from high school English class. A simile is a comparison, but it is indirect, usually using words like or as to connect the two things. The wind was howling like a wolf. Personification is a type of metaphor when the thing is compared to a person, like in the wind whispered through the leaves. The term metaphor can be used to refer to the general category that includes the metaphor proper, as well as simile and personification. Okay, this technical stuff is not what's cool about metaphors. What's cool about metaphors is the effect as they engage our imaginations. When authors write, "the wind howled," they're not just saying that the wind was blowing fairly hard. They are saying that there's something threatening about the wind. If the wind is whispering in the branches, the threat is gone and perhaps we have found a breezy friend. Metaphors engage the imagination. That's why they are so powerful, but there is a way to totally screw them up. One of the main ways to screw up a metaphor is to create a mixed metaphor. These are embarrassing unless they're written by a 10-year-old. The problem with mixed metaphors is not that there are a bunch of nitpicky English teachers out there forever picking apart every word that I've ever written in a song. The problem with mixed metaphors is that they destroy the comparison, and therefore they shut down the imagination. So what is a mixed metaphor? Well, let me explain by using two wonderful metaphors that Jesus gave us. He said, "I am the good shepherd, I lay down my life for the sheep." He also said, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never grow hungry." These are both legit metaphors, but if we mix them, we have, "I am the bread of life. I lay down my life for the sheep." The comparison is nonsensical. Bread doesn't lay down its life for anything. Bread doesn't have a life to lay down, and if it had one, it wouldn't lay them down for sheep. Unlike metaphor, this silly comparison does not lead to deeper reflections on who Jesus is. We're just puzzled or shaking our heads. Let's remix this metaphor. I am the good shepherd. Whoever comes to me will never grow hungry. Okay, this actually works. It gets our imagination going, but in an entirely wrong direction. So some care must be taken with metaphors. I've only sung Needtobreathe's Multiplied one time, and it was memorable for all the wrong reasons. I remember it because of its mixed metaphors. Your love is like radiant diamonds, bursting inside us we cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfires singing your name. In this verse, we have God's love being compared to diamonds bursting inside us. It makes sense to compare God's love with something as beautiful, multifaceted, and long-lasting as a diamond. It also makes sense to compare the feeling of being loved by God as a bursting sensation. But it makes no sense to compare anything to a bursting diamond, because that's not what diamonds do. It's one of their main things not to do that. The last line has a similar problem. Blazing wildfires don't look for things, and they don't find them, and they don't sing. Both of these are mixed metaphors. I suppose you'd be fine if you just sang the songs and never thought about the lyrics. But isn't that a whole different problem? Chris Tomlin's Amazing Grace, My Chains Are Gone, also suffers from the same problem. The chorus that Tomlin has added to this most beloved hymn climaxes on a mixed metaphor. My chains are gone, I've been set free, my God, my Savior has ransomed me, and like a flood his mercy reigns, unending love, amazing grace. Like a flood his mercy reigns is a mixed metaphor. It is saying that God's mercy is like a raining flood, but floods don't rain. It's like saying, like a flood, his mercy shines, or soars, or melts, or skates. Floods flow. They overwhelm. They cover and destroy. They glut, stream, spate, and surge. For various reasons, none of these really work very well as a replacement for rain, but hey, good poetry is hard to write. If we are going to write poetry to be used for the glory of God, it ought to be good. And mixed metaphors are not good. They're bad. When metaphors are done correctly, they can be magical. Let's start by looking at a poem written by a pro. Here is Robert Frost's Bereft. Where had I heard this wind before, change like this to a deeper roar? What would it take my standing there for, holding open a restive door, looking downhill to a frothy shore? Summer was past and day was past, somber clouds in the west were massed. Out on the porch's sagging floor, leaves got up in a coil and hissed, blindly struck at my knee and missed. Something sinister in the tone told me my secret must be known. Word I was in the house alone somehow must have gotten abroad. Word I was in my life alone. Word I had no one left but God. As with all great poetry, there is so much more going on here than metaphor, but the metaphors are wonderful, and we will focus primarily on these. In line 2, the sound of the ocean turns into a roar, which suggests a metaphorical comparison to a lion. And in line 11, something about the feeling of the atmosphere turns sinister. That's personification. In line 4, the door is restive, meaning it's agitated. And there's more personification in the somber clouds. All these metaphors combine to suggest turmoil within the speaker, and a sense of some sort of danger. The threat increases as the leaves are metaphorically compared to a snake in lines 9 and 10. Out on the porch's sagging floor, leaves got up in a coil and hissed, blindly struck at my knee and missed. When these stormy conditions are described metaphorically in this way, we can imaginatively begin to understand the complex feeling the speaker is experiencing. It is a particular kind of loneliness, a profound loneliness mixed with existential fear. Even if we've never before experienced this ourselves, we know just a little bit about what it feels like because we've just read this poem. And the metaphors have engaged our imagination. Frost has described an indescribable feeling to us through metaphor. That's the power of metaphor. Can you imagine how much more profound our singing and worship would be if we used metaphor in this way? Well, there's good news. There are some worship songs that use metaphor to express the inexpressible and explore the unknowable, ones that engage our imaginations. My Lighthouse from Rend Collective Experiment employs an extended metaphor, a comparison that extends through the whole song. In my wrestling and in my doubts, in my failures, you won't walk out. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. In the silence, you won't let go. In the questions, your truth will hold. Your great love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness, I will follow you. My lighthouse, I will trust the promise you will carry me safe to shore. I won't fear what tomorrow brings. With each morning I'll rise and sing. My God's love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Fire before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the storm. Sometimes our life is like a troubled sea. But notice that the troubles in this poem aren't general and abstract. They are a particular kind of trouble. And they don't fall into the categories of cancer or bankruptcy or divorce. What stirs up these waters is a lack of trust. The forces behind these turbulent waters are wrestling, doubts, questions, failures, and God's silence. A lack of trust in God. The metaphor invites us to look beyond our troubled thoughts to that which we can trust to take us through them, to the lighthouse. Lighthouses have two functions: to warn ships of danger and to guide them to safe harbor. Both functions are relevant in this song. Remembering God's promises will shift our focus from the dangers of doubt by saving us from them, and the lighthouse will guide us safe to shore. Christ and his promises are a guiding light when we are on the dark and stormy seas, when we struggle with trusting God. Because of the effective use of metaphor, this song doesn't just tell us to trust in God when we're in trouble. It places us on a boat, caught in a storm off of some coast, and it shows us a lighthouse through driving wind and rain. We can trust the lighthouse to guide us. It does not move, no matter how hard the winds blow. And then, as we sing, we discover we will be all right, not by our own strength, but by looking to him. This is the magic of metaphor. Thank you, and we will see you next time.